Greetings to all. My name is Gonzalo, and I'm the creator and maker of the brand/project Dterioro. The town where I live is quite small and ancient. It is one of the most well-known of the towns inside the community of Madrid. I am surrounded by the mountains and nature, which gives me a lot of calmness and peace. I come from a family of people of my close relatives who work in the fashion industry, but on the big corporations side of fashion, which since I started getting older and understanding how everything worked, I started hating it. So once I got older, I also had the references from other family members who were artisans and craftsmen and made things with their hands, like in an artisanal way, and that showed me and made me see how I wanted to do things. So when I wanted to create my project or my brand, I didn't think about going big or having a big business and being famous and all of that. I just wanted to create a project or a small brand or business which went beyond just being clothing, because I had my own vision about how the garments, how I like the garments to look, and to not be so centered on an aesthetic, but on being I'm playing with perfection and imperfection, and also introducing something that could be worn by everybody and didn't have any stereotypes attached, and also and primarily to provide something that didn't have a negative impact on the environment, that was made consciously and applying all the ancient or older artisanal techniques that I had learned and that I wanted to use to make my clothes. Because apart from the clothing itself, I always paid very much attention to the imperfection and the perfection that are intertwined when you saw an antique garment. Like I always investigated garments that were like 100 or 200 years old, where they were all sewn by hand, and you always saw imperfections, because when something is made by a human, which is one of the other things that I didn't like about the sort of fashion stereotypes, is that everything has to be perfect, and which it's also something to try to do. Like obviously perfection, it's nothing wrong, but I wanted to portray another face with my brand and with my products and with my garments, that didn't center on perfection, but also portray that imperfection that comes when making garments by hand, and acknowledging those details of the hand-sewn stitches and the fabric being not being ironed and all of that. In Dterioro, the focus is put on the artisanal techniques used in order to make each garment, each piece, which is basically not only for this collection, but I think not in collections, but in garments. So I'm never going to change the way I do things, because I do not want to see, my vision is not going to be to go bigger and faster, but to stay the same and focus on creating the same garments, which focus on using hand-sewn techniques and stitches and seams when it's required, or when I use the natural dyeing techniques always done by hand, choosing the materials that I use to dye, which I always source myself, being certain roots or seeds or whatever vegetable scraps I use, but I also like to work with certain food waste, which is also one of the main focuses of Dterioro, which is a 100% zero waste project, and circular also project, which generates zero waste, not only from creating each garment, but also in the processes I used, as I do not throw anything away. I also always compost and repurpose the materials I used when I dye. The water I use in the highest percent gets recycled or reused, so I never waste big quantities of water. I choose wisely how much do I need to dye and make and have the results I want when I dye each piece, or when I have to use natural dyeing. And also in the way I use when I sew by hand, I always try to use the stitches that are the toughest, obviously for major durability, but also the intention is to show that when hand sewing techniques are used, my aim is also to show that there are imperfections. Like I've said, you're always going to find in my garments like loose threads because when you make a seam, sometimes you obviously can never calculate the exact amount of thread that you have to use, so you're going to have to add more thread when you're sewing. So I like to leave some loose threads, loose ends when I finish a stitch. So yeah, always the focus is on the details of the hand sewn techniques and the dyeing, or when it's not dyeing, it's the washing that the garments get, which I always in my own vision and how I like things. I personally do not like garments being ironed, because in my opinion, that goes against the proper nature of fabrics, which is to frame and to wrinkle. Because when you wash, especially with the linens and cottons and basically all natural fabrics, when you wash them and when you use them, they are going to wrinkle, they are going to frame, they are going to get stained, and that's the purpose of the garments I make. The thing that when I make the designs, or whatever you want to call them, of my garments, of the clothing I make, I always find my sort of inspiration or the process to create them. It's always found on how people used to dress like a century ago, or but the working class people, like the working people, the workwear garments, how people use the clothing. They didn't have various types of clothing, but they had one or two shirts and jackets, and that was what they used all year round, made from tough fabrics, all always hand woven, and that kind of clothing that in most cases wasn't obviously made, because they were made by the seamstresses of each town on those times, so they weren't under the umbrella of a stereotype or certain look. They just were garments made for the people to work and to live in. So when I create, I always have in mind to create a garment that is going to be suitable to wear in all occasions, that you're not going to get tired of wearing, that you want to wear all of the time, to tear it, to stain it, to just live in it, which is the purpose that I want to portray on the work that I do, that you don't have to be afraid sort of to wear the garments because they are too precious or something like that. I want the garments to show that they are made to be worn and to be and to sustain the amount of wear and tear that the wearer puts into them, which is what obviously workwear garments were designed or made for. So that's a big part of an important part when I create and make my work. The concept or the foundation behind Dterioro is always focused on the passing of time, basically on creating garments that inside they are unique and they are made to be worn and to accompany its wearer through its life, and like all the important moments that each person has in life, the different experiences. You always have memories of them, but in some cases or in most cases you don't remember, or you do remember, but the clothing that you had on when you experienced all those things. And also one of the main keys and important parts of the Dterioro is that on those experiences, you, like in life, once you develop and you get older, all the experiences that you live, you get like a reminder, or you remember them by a smell or a certain image, a certain color. And with the Dterioro, the same. The garment has to evolve with you from the moment that you received it, which when it was brand new, to when the first stain that you put on it was maybe in your favorite restaurant, or when you are eating a food that you enjoyed surrounded by the people you loved, or maybe the first little hole that appeared on the garment was because you used it so much to go on your everyday life, on your own work, or the things that you loved doing. So when you repair it, or when it gets repaired, you're going to remember that first repair with joy, and that's always the one of the most important keys of Dterioro, which is like I've said, to acknowledge the passing of time and the always evolving, constant changing experience of life, of the circle of life, which in this case you live alongside your garments and appreciating all those moments and all those experiences. In addition, behind the concept, it's always, like I've also said, but I want to express how important this is, to show that apart from all the other things that I've said, the most important thing behind the concept is always to show to show the zero waste and circular, let's say, processes that are behind Dterioro, and that in all its stages and on every part of the processes and of the brand, there's never a negative impact created, but not negative but positive, and that it's possible with how I work and the way I conduct myself during all the processes that I have and that I use in order to make every single garment, and also in order to create something that is meaningful and that goes beyond not only the garment but also the story and the process behind it.